All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Nancy Ronke,
And I'm Mara Marita.
And I'm Claire Mitchell.
and we know this isn't going to be a perfect presentation. We wanted it to be kind of informal, where the three of us are, having a conversation about some of the slides that we created and experiences we created with Socratic Seminars in a sixth and a seventh grade literacy classroom. And so the topic today is really, why do we purposely construct Socratic Seminars to nurture independent learners? And then how do you do that in a class? So we are going to ground everything today in our four different sections. We have four different videos that we're going to share with you, and they're all going to be grounded really in this research. So Fier has this wonderful book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and it's all about mutual humanization and really students being seen as teachers with important things to contribute. And it was written in 1978, but it's still really profound research study.
And when you take a look at the part of the quote, we pigeonhole them at our own peril when we don't provide for them the forums they need to be profound, to experiment with ideas, to be wrong and survive the experience, to be intellectually resilient. So when this slide was up at my actual classroom preparing for a Socratic seminar, the mutual humanization really struck me as I looked around my classroom, and I saw I have many students that are marginalized, and they don't have a voice, and we just want them to sit in their seat and comply. And with one particular student, he just bounced out at me, his face, and I was thinking, I wonder what this is going to be like for him, because it was my first Socratic seminar with this particular student being part of it. And it was amazing to see this student who comes from a very impoverished background. His father's in jail, in and out of jail. He comes from a very large family, different fathers. And it was amazing to see him shine. And I thought, this is putting everyone on the same playing field, instead of just the people or the students that typically shine and have the high academic accolades. This student who does have high academic accolades, but we tend to pigeonhole him and say, oh, well, he fits this stereotype. And so I just think that the Socratic Seminars are a great place for leveling the playing ground for everyone. So
I agree.
So really, Socratic Seminar is all about changing the power structure in a classroom, and not just a classroom, but really all of society. So it's not just a strategy, it's like a noble endeavor that we feel really strongly about. So I'm going to, and I think it's important too, like Mara, you touched on this, like we shared these exact quotes with students and had a conversation about it, so they understood the why of it. So I think that's important to do too in class. Don't hide that from them. And then wanted to show these pictures. So these are from Mara's seventh grade literacy and world geography classes. And think about what you notice when you look at that picture. I notice a student really in charge, standing behind the hot seat, everybody's eyes on him. And then Mara is physically like lower than the students, right? That she's sitting on the ground.
Which was hard for me because I want to be in charge, and letting go is one of the best things that I've ever done, and letting the students lead.
And it's all about trust too. Like I see this reciprocal thing happening where the teacher starts to trust the students more, the students start to trust themselves and the teacher more. And then when that fear goes away, then you learn more. There's deeper comprehension that happens because of it. Just a couple other pictures. So this is same Socratic seminar, but you can see how all the faces shifted to another person who was speaking. This person is reading what the co-pilot who's sitting behind her, what that person wrote. So then the person's able to say, hey, my co-pilot has this question, and is able to bring the co-pilot or the non-speaking people into the conversation.
And the co-pilot's position is wonderful for students that don't necessarily have the, maybe they're afraid of speaking when they're in the center. And so the co-pilot, you give voice to everyone. You know, maybe you're only going to get some type of interaction by being the co-pilot. When they're in the center, sometimes they're so afraid that they don't talk at all. But this gives the kids that might be afraid to speak some voice.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then this is the last picture from this session. And we have a student standing behind the hot seat again, but then you can see all the students' faces and then Mara on the ground, like really looking up. So it's that power dynamic shifting so that the students truly believe that they have valuable things to say. So it's a shift in the classroom, but it's also a shift inside each individual's mind too, as they're starting to discuss something. So we wanted to go over some research. So there's a couple of great books, The Art of Changing the Brain and also Nurturing Independent Learners. And they all talk about how the brain actually learns. So really you start learning through sensory input. You have to activate senses first, and then you have to play around with that, make mistakes with that knowledge, and then teach other people. So that's the 3D model of mastery, starting with modeling from the teacher or other students. Consolidation is people messing around with that knowledge, making mistakes, having fun with it, and then moving towards consultation, where they are the teacher. And then you think about the skill gets more complex, and you think about far transfer. That 3D model of mastery is based on how our brains work. So that's why we always have to think about that as we're planning anything, especially Socratic seminars. Socratic seminars are all about students consolidating and listening to each other and then moving into a power position in the classroom. So they're the consultants. Another great quote that we love, it's really about knowledge. And that it's messy, like reading and learning and writing, understanding something in a deep way is going to be messy. We're going to make mistakes. But Socratic Seminar is also like this hopeful inquiry that's really beautiful. And there we go, next slide. I love it. We're going to keep it. So this is some research. From a few years ago. And I went into an eighth grade science class, and they had never done Socratic seminars before in this eighth grade science class. So this is an example of one student of what he was doing before the 3 Socratic seminars. So I had him silently read eighth grade science text and stop at strategic spots and explain what he was thinking. And before the Socratic seminars, he just restated quotes from the text. He really didn't have any power over the text. It was whatever the author said. He maybe made a couple connections and visualized a tiny little bit. But then after the 3 Socratic seminars, you can see how his thinking shifted, and he was clarifying and reflecting and visualizing. He was able to summarize. And that happened because he was able to internalize what happened in the Socratic seminars and then have that own type of questioning happening in his own mind. And that's kind of what this meta-analysis says too, that student-led discussions have the most impact on people who are reading at or below grade level. And it really does improve comprehension. It's not just this nice thing to have every once in a while to kind of change things up. It really does improve comprehension. And it's really important that students build questions independently and ask questions of each other, and that they build off each other's thinking. It has to be an authentic type of discussion.
And I think that was a big growing point for me this year, is letting go. I used to create all the questions and feed all the questions. And there are times that you need to do that. But for me as a teacher, letting the students come up with the authentic questions, it makes for a much more powerful discussion when they're in charge, not my questions of what I think is important. And it's amazing when you let the students create their own questions, things that I wouldn't even think of actually come about, and it's a much richer discussion.
So for the next section, we're going to stop and pause, then we're going to start a new section. It's going to be about what do you do to prepare for the Socratic seminar? Because there's really intentional strategies that you can do to enhance students' sensory like input and engagement before you do the Socratic seminar so that they're super successful. So that's what will come next.